Hi everyone, it's Rax, bringing you a video about how to level up in Diablo 4. This is the question I've been asked by far the most out of all of them, and I want to make a video here that's going to help you. Blizzard has nerfed a million different things about the game, and so instead of just telling you exactly right now what is specifically in this moment the fastest way to level, because it changes by day, I want to talk to you about some concepts about leveling which are going to help you through the different chapters. And I already have two 100s, like 10 days into the season, so I know a thing or two about leveling. So let me hop on my Barb here, who actually has everything unlocked, and I want to talk to you about some different options that you have. Okay, so starting out in the game, you have the option to, once you've beaten, I'm assuming you've beaten the campaign. If you haven't beaten the campaign, you do the campaign, because you have to do it one time. When you level a second character, you can choose to do the campaign again or skip it. It is much faster to skip the campaign if you want to level up. So that's the first hint. Skip it if you want to level up fast. So let me tell you how everyone has been leveling. What they have done is they pick a dungeon and they go clear it very quickly. So, for example, Champion's Demise was considered the best because Champion's Demise is kind of like a Wolverine claw with 3 lanes. And you make a group and everyone goes and clears one lane, and then you leave. The big trick to these dungeons, sadly, it's the same problem that Immortal had until they fixed it, is the idea is to zone into a dungeon, kill a bunch of monsters very quickly, and leave and not finish it. The way that Immortal solved this is they backloaded all the rewards instead of front loading it. So you would get a lot of XP for completing the dungeon, and you would get all the juicy loot at the end of the dungeon. That incentivizes you to finish it. Well, same problem in Diablo 4. They didn't fix it. Really what you do is you log into the dungeon, you just delete the monsters as fast as you can, and then you leave. So, by the way, let me just mention it now before I forget. People ask all the time, how do you leave quickly? How do you reset the dungeons? Because they took out the dungeon reset button. What you do is, at the end of a dungeon, hit E and leave the dungeon, okay? You're going to be standing outside of it. You say, Rax, that's the most obvious thing ever. Wait. Leave the dungeon, escape, leave game. In that order. Leave the dungeon, then leave the game. And log back in, and then you'll be right outside the dungeon and you can walk in. If you don't do that, it'll port you to a town. Then you have to mount up and ride back to the dungeon. And that's very annoying. Another thing you can do is pick really godly dungeons next to each other and just go back and forth and back and forth. Okay, so anyway, Champion's Demise was the best. That's how Rob got the world first level 100, just running Champion's Demise. Okay, they nerfed Champion's Demise, fine. So then the next best one was Ruins of Eridu. Guess what happened today? They nerfed it. And then there's other dungeons that they nerfed. And Blizzard released a statement. They said they're going to balance all the dungeons so they're even. By the way, there was another really good one. Malgan something, can't remember what it was called, can't remember, I ran it a million times, I don't know, it's somewhere. They nerfed it. So instead of talking about which dungeon right now is specifically the best, which is going to get nerfed tomorrow anyway, let's talk about some concepts. Skip the campaign is the first thing. Find a dungeon that you like that has a lot of density in the beginning, clear it, and then again, either leave the dungeon, leave the game, or find 2 that you can ping pong between. Now, what else can you do leveling 1 to 50? There are certain events that pop up. There isn't one up right now called Legion events. It'll be like a little icon like this, and it'll have a little bar going across it, letting you know that it's about to spawn. Those probably pound for pound give you the most XP for the time. If you ever see a Legion event, I think that's the highest XP per hour. Now, you can only do it once in a while when they're up, but that is something very important to pay attention to. Another thing that's very good is Helltide, which is up over here. Now, the thing about Helltide, which I can port here and show you, is the monsters are always at your level +2, no matter what. This is very important in the end game, which we'll talk about later. It's always your level +2. So if I go here on my level 100 Barb, and I go outside, you're going to notice the monsters are level 102. Really, the only way to find level 102 monsters or higher is in Nightmare dungeons. and I release a Helltide guide, level 102 Balrog. Okay, so Helltide is another great way to not only get XP, but Helltide is, in my opinion, the best way to build wealth on your account. I've literally lost all of my gold. I had probably farmed at least 200 million gold. I actually lost it all dying to Uber Lilith because I'm trying to beat her with a regular, not exploited build. Forgotten Souls. If someone asks me, how rich are you, Rax? Or if I'm trying to measure how rich someone is in Diablo 4, it's how many Forgotten Souls do you have. It's not how much gold do you have. I can farm 250 million gold a day. Forgotten Souls, though, are way harder to farm. You get Forgotten Souls by doing Helltide. I just released a Helltide video, or I'm going to release a Helltide video. I don't know if it's going to be before or after this one. Watch that one, because that's how you get rich. It's getting these Forgotten Souls. Do the mystery chest, do the strategy there. So Helltide is good because the monster level is higher, and the mystery chests pay you a shitload of legendaries, etc. So this is a good way to level up and build wealth. And that's pretty much it. Legion's events are the best. Look for Helltide, otherwise efficiently run dungeons. Then you might ask, well, what about overworld farming and turning into the Tree of Whispers? You can do that if you want. In the current state of the game, and this might change, current state of the game doesn't seem very worth it. Then you say, okay, Rax, well, what about, what about doing all the side quests? No. Side quests pay literally nothing right now. So it's just not good. And then you might say, well, what about doing the Renown a second time? When you've completed the Renown on one character, so this is the first character that I made, notice how it gave me a skill point, potion, skill, obols, and paragon points. When you do it a second time on a second character, you have all of these godly bonuses unlocked by default. The only thing that you get for doing Renown on a second character is gold, and the amount of gold that you get is completely insignificant. You can run one Nightmare Dungeon and probably make as much as you would doing the whole set of Renown on your entire character all over again. So it's completely useless. So the only reason you would consider doing the side quests is either for the materials that they drop, which is, I guess, something, or the XP, which is really bad currently in the game. So I would not recommend Tree of Whispers or side quests. I would recommend Legion events, Helltide, and running any dungeon that you like over and over. People are going to ask, okay, Rax, but just tell me what dungeons are good. The one that seems pretty good still is Blind Burrows. Some people also really like Forsaken Quarry. Now, all the best ones have been nerfed. They're nothing amazing. But those are ones that you can do for right now that are all right. Okay, then you get to 50. You clear the capstone dungeon. People always ask me, Rax, what in the world do I do at level 50 to keep going? At level 50, you need to change the difficulty to World Tier 3. You have to. Because World Tier 3 is going to drop Sacred Gear. You need to remove the stuff that you're wearing, the normal items, and you need to replace it with Sacred Gear ASAP, especially your weapons. You can get whatever, an eye level 650, 700 weapon, and before you only had a 400 weapon, it will be a colossal damage increase. So that's the first thing. So you go into level 50, and what do? I would advise the same exact things. I would advise the Legion events for XP, Helltide, because it's a higher level than you, and you can farm Forgotten Souls, which you will need in the end game. You will do things that are illegal in 18 different countries for Forgotten Souls later. So you might as well farm them while you're leveling. And now you can do Nightmare Dungeons. The Nightmare Dungeon level that you should do is your level minus 54. That's the tier you should do, because they default at level 54. So if you do your level minus, or the key minus 54, you're going to be plugging the key that's exactly at your level. So it's going to be nice and comfy to clear it, and you will be getting some nice rewards. Okay? So I am level 100. What Nightmare Dungeon key should I plug? 100 minus 54, 46. About. Now, if you're going to push, obviously punch it up higher while you're leveling. Try to stick somewhere to that rule. The Nightmare Dungeon key minus 54. Nightmare Dungeons are the only way in the game that you can level up your glyphs. It's the only way that you can level up your glyphs. So at some point in your leveling process, you need to run nightmare dungeons to get your glyphs up, because a huge portion of your power. Why not do it early rather than late? That way you have that power the whole time. Some people level to 100 and their glyphs are level 2, and then they power up their glyphs and they're like, huh, man, that would have been really nice to have the whole time. So there is like a nightmare dungeon tier list that we're working on. Some of them really suck. For example, like Sunken Ruins. This is like, look at this, where this is. These are the 2 closest waypoints. In order to even start the dungeon, you got to run all the way here. We're begging Blizzard to let us just port into the nightmare dungeon when you plug the key. Don't know if they're gonna let us do that, because they're literally in love with us riding around in the open world. But that's a topic for another video. Not all nightmare dungeons are created equal, but it's fine. I mean, whatever you have, you can just plug it. Just want to show you one thing in case you didn't know this. You can craft nightmare dungeon keys. You can salvage the ones that you absolutely hate, and you can craft the ones that you really, really like. The way you do that is at the Occultist. So you go over here in any town. The Occultist got the triangle and the 3 circles around it. Here we go. Boom. You go here, craft. If you're just getting started, you can craft in between these tiers. Okay? And then when you get up higher, you can craft the mega ones, and then you'll be pumping. So make sure that you do that. You can salvage the ones you don't like. You can craft the ones that you do like. And that pretty much goes the same for when you hit level 60. When you hit level 60-ish, maybe a little bit higher, or maybe a little bit lower, depending upon if you're a little bit more casual or if you're a god player. Do the capstone dungeon to go to level 70. It's a little gold dungeon. I don't know, where is it? Somewhere over here. This gold dungeon, by the way, is Uber Lilith. That's where I've been getting farmed for a long time. You need to get into torment difficulty for exactly the same reason. You've got to get an 800 plus power ancestral weapon, at least the weapon. Then you're going to be way stronger. It's the same strategy. Keep leveling up the nightmare dungeons. That way you can keep pumping up your glyphs. Always look for the Helltide. Make sure you watch the video on how to get the mysterious chests and how to get the Forgotten Souls. You're going to be rich by the time that you actually need it when you find good gear and you want to re-roll stuff. The Legion events are still good for XP. And remember, if I didn't mention this earlier, the Legion events drop the very rare Ghost Mount. People love that thing. Ghost Mount. Does that sound good to you? Do the Legion events. Or you can just efficiently do dungeons with your friends. Nightmare dungeons with your friends. Super good. Because, again, you can split off and do the objectives. So that, in general, is the best ways to level. When the game released, it was very sad. Like, the world first race was running normal dungeons. They designed all of these endgame events like Helltide and Nightmare Dungeons and World Bosses and even the PvP zone. The PvP zone used to be really good, but now it's like very contested. So, I mean, you're just going to be farming. You're probably going to get killed, especially while you're leveling up your baby tune. So it's just not good enough anymore. But out of all those endgame activities, it ended up being regular dungeons, which is why Blizzard is so actively nerfing it. Day after day after day, they're looking for every single thing that people are doing that's really efficient in these regular activities, and they're nerfing it. So we'll see what changes come to Season 1. If they change the way that XP works, I'll make an update for this video. But those are essentially the best ways. Legion events, Helltide, and later on Nightmare Dungeons. And things to avoid are side quests or a duplicate Round of Renown, open world events, Tree of Whispers, and some of the really bad dungeons that they're starting to nerf. If you do dungeons, remember, you don't have to do the whole thing. Find a big juicy beginning, leave the dungeon, then leave the game, and then go back in. That's probably the fastest way you can level. I really hope that helped you guys. Let me know in the comments if it didn't. If this video was stupid and it didn't help you. Let me know, and I'll try to take some feedback from it and make it better. But I keep getting asked this question, and this is the best answer that I can possibly give you that I can think of. Thank you.